Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're just going to let everybody get logged in. All right, welcome everyone to the Vendor Pre-Proposal Conference for Education, Information Technology, Products and Related Service, RFO. The RFO number is DIR CPO TMP 588. Before we get started, we're going to go over a few housekeeping rules. Can everybody please raise their hand to confirm that they can hear me? Perfect, thank you so much. I would like to remind everybody that they can switch from their computer audio to their phone call. And attendees will be muted today, so please submit all your questions via the Q&A box. And we would like to remind everybody that the handout will be available in the addendum. I will now turn it over to Tuving.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tu Van Huynh, the procurement lead for this RFO. Joining me today, we have Mark Leavenworth presenting for Marie Cohen, Brianna Ballinger, and Alexis Jimerson. Our agenda today, we will go over a high-level view of the RFO, general information, Bitstamp Vendor Information System Portal, or VIS, and mandatory submission. We will take a short break and then resume for questions, and then we'll close. Next question. Next slide, please. RFO overview. The purpose of this request for offer is to solicit responses from potential vendors to provide education, information technology, products, and related services to the state of Texas, acting by and through the Department of Information Resources, DIR. DIR may make multiple awards for this RFO in order to establish the master contracts for our customer to utilize. Next slide, please. This is a quick snapshot of the historic sales for our cooperative contract program, which this RFO falls under. The sales are broken down into customer segments, which is assistant organizations, higher ed, K-12, local government, out-of-state entities, and state agencies. This is also divided into fiscal years of 2021, 2022, and 2023, with the total sales of being in billions for the entire corporate contracts program. Next slide, please. I will not go through in detail every items in the RFO. However, I will go through this item in order. The RFO contains attachment 1 to 5 and exhibits A to K. Attachment 1 is a sample contracts for products and services contracts. Attachment 2 is standard contract terms and condition. Attachment 3 is a service agreement template. Attachment 4 is a master lease agreement template. Attachment 5 is the master operating lease agreement. Attachment Exhibit A is a respondent's information. Exhibit B, respondent history and experience. Exhibit C is a contract marketing and customer support plan. Exhibit D is the hub subcontracting plan sample form. Exhibit E is the itemized pricing, and Exhibit F is a reference form. Next, please. And Exhibit G is a respondent's release of liability. Exhibit H is an EGGER certification form. Exhibit I is policy-driven adoptions for accessibility, vendor self-assessment. And Exhibit J is a volunteer product accessibilities template. Exhibit K is a vendor accessibility development services information request form. Next, please. Request for offer. Next, please. Term of contract. The solicitations is intended to have a contract that will last 2 years for the initial term, beginning on the last date of approval by DIR. The contract will renew automatically in 1 2-year renewal and 1 1-year renewal options under the same term and conditions unless either party provides notice to the other party 60 days in advance of the renewal date, stating that the party wishes to discuss modification of terms or not to renewal. Next slide, please. The anticipated schedule of event is covered in section 3.3 of the RFO document. The RFO was published on the Electronic State Business Daily, ESBD, on March 18, 2024. Today, April 3rd, 2024 is the optional pre-proposal webinar. April 5th, 2024 is the deadline for submitting questions. May 22nd at 2 p.m. Central Time is the deadline for receiving vendor references and the deadline for submitting responses to the RFO. And then May 23rd, 2024 and onward is the evaluation process, which will lead into negotiations and contract execution. Evaluations of responses. Evaluation of responses is broken down in the RFO section 4.2.1, which is the pass or fail criteria. Please note that incomplete response packets will be rejected. The financial review, accessibility review, and the HSP review are on a pass-fail basis. Failure to provide a DUNS number may result in your response being disqualified. Only responses that receive the passing grade will proceed to the next evaluation phase, which is broken down in section 4.2.2, the weighted evaluation criteria. For your evaluation factor is as follows. 40% of the weighted criteria is in pricing. The respondent histories and experience is 30%, and respondent's contract marketing and customer support plans is 30% with the weighted criteria. A way to look at this is somewhat of a scorecard of those pass and fail criteria needs to be met in order to move to the evaluation phase. And then once you are in the evaluation phase, you need to get a high score to pass on to the negotiation phase of the contract. Next slide, please. Exhibit A, A1, and B. For the exhibit A, B, and C, follow the instructions and complete thoroughly. Exhibit A contains mandatory information such as DUNS number needed for a financial review. If a respondent does not provide a DUNS number and as a result of financial review cannot be completed, then the proposal will be rejected. This form must be filled out in its entirety and signed by an officer or an agent empowered to contractually bind the respondent. Complete cancel contracts references if applicable. Exhibit A1 is an exception form. Under Exhibit A, item 13, Respondent will indicate whether or not it has any exceptions. If yes, the respondent will fill out this Form A1 as instructed in Exhibit A, item 13A through 13G. Please note that respondents' response may be disqualified if their exceptions are excessive. Exhibit B and C are scored, so please complete thoroughly with information related to their scope of the RFO. Exhibit B is the respondent history and experience. Respondents must provide a detailed response to each question detailing the respondent history and experience in providing the products and services proposed. Next, please. Exhibit B is the contract, marketing, and customer supporting plan. Respondent must provide a plan that describes the respondent's ability and strategy for promoting and supporting the contract if awarded. Exhibit D is the sample historical underutilized business HSP form. Respondents must provide HSP form as instructed in section 3.4.1 Hub Subcontracting Plan, item B of the RFO. Please note, vendors must download the latest form using the link provided under item B. Exhibit E is the itemized price sheet. Respondents must submit specific pricing for products and services requested. Respondent must respond as instructed in Exhibit E, itemized price sheet spreadsheet. Next, please. Exhibit F is the vendor references. Respondents must send their Exhibit F reference form to a minimum of 3 companies or government agencies. References must respond to DIR on the form provided by the due date in order to be considered for evaluation. Respondent may not submit the reference form to DIR. Exhibit E is the respondent's release of liability for references. This form is required for all canceled contracts and must be provided to DIR with respondent's proposal. Exhibit H is the AGR certification form. Respondent must provide the AGR certification form as requested in section 3.6.1, federal requirements of the RFO. Next, please. Exhibit I is the PDAA. Respondents must complete the policy-driven adoption for accessibility for vendor self-assessment regardless of products and services in the response. The Exhibit J is the VPAT. Respondents must provide accessibility conformant report for all commercial off-the-shelf products. Exhibit K is the VADI DSIR for non-COTS products. Respondent must provide a completed VADISR for all proposed development services listed in Exhibit E, itemized price sheet. Mark will go over Exhibit I to K more thoroughly later in this webinar. Next, please. RFO scope. The scope for the RFO can be found under Section 2, and DIR intends to contract with the successful respondent to provide education, information technology products, and related services. Next, please. Type of hardware within scope include, but not limited to, classroom interactive tools, interactive boards, touchscreens, response system, active learning kits, mobile tablet devices, technology-based laboratory products, graphing calculators. Next, please. Type of software, commercial off-the-shelf, COTS, or software as a service within scope, but not limited to mobile device applications, online and client-based curriculum solutions, student information system, such as student retention CRM, student enrollment CRM, subscriptions, etc. Learning management systems with the purpose of delivering courses to students, and calculator software applications. Next, please. Type of solution-based technology for education, including but not limited to artificial intelligence enhanced products for education, technology-based solutions for education, including bundled hardware and software with services, blended learning tools, technology-based laboratory products, accessibility, solution-based technology, hardware and software learning products. Type of services for education, including but not limited to information technology management analysis services, information technology assessment and planning services, type of related services to hardware and software, including installation, warranty, maintenance, support, training, subscriptions, and managed services. Exclusions and items out of scope of this RFO include related services only, without also providing an associate product services within scope, custom application development services, deliverable-based information technology services, DBITS, cloud broker services, cloud assessment services, professional and consultant services as defined in Chapter 2254 of the Texas Government Code. Telecommunication services, including any telecommunication services offered in a contract awarded by DIR under a tax and procurement. Please note that out of scope products include the state of Texas prohibited software application developer or manufacturer list posted on DIR website. I will now hand over to Brianna to cover the Hub subcontracting plan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna Ballinger. I am a Hub coordinator with DIR. Today, we are going to go over the Hub subcontracting plan, otherwise known as the HSP, that is required for this RFO. All vendors will complete a Hub subcontracting plan, or HSP. We have included the link here for the most current and approved copy of the Hub subcontracting plan. Please do not modify this document. It is an editable copy. All respondents are required to submit an HSP. Failure to submit a completed HSP will cause your response to be rejected. This is a pass or fail item. There are 3 ways to complete the HSP. You will self-perform, meet or exceed the Hub goal, and complete Method A, or you will not meet the Hub goal and complete Method B. The Hub goal for this RFO is 21.1%. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds the 21.1% Hub goal, you will complete Method A. Be sure to identify all Hub and non-Hub vendors you will be subcontracting with. Please include the anticipated dollar amounts and the expected percentages. So for this, you will complete Section 1, 2, 4, and Method A. Most importantly, please do not forget to sign and date the HSP in Section 4. If you will be self-performing, you will complete Section 1, 2, 3, and 4. In your self-performing justification, you will identify how your company will fulfill this contract with its own staff, equipment, and resources. Please do not say you will subcontract in the future or if you will need to. Tell us how your company will self-perform. And last but not least, if you are going to subcontract below the hub goal, you will complete method B. Be sure to solicit a minimum of 3 hub certified companies and 2 minority trade organizations. You must allow them 7 working days to respond to you prior to the due date of this RFO. Include your outreach to these entities with your HSP. So for this, you will complete section 1, 2, 4, and method B. Also, please don't forget the approximate dollar amounts and percentages and sign-in date. We have included our contact information here for you. Please remember that the HSP is a pass or fail document. We will provide a complimentary review of the HSP prior to the due date. You must contact us no later than 10 days before the due date. I will now turn it back over to Tuvan.
Exhibit E, pricing sheet. Next, please. Respondents must submit pricing on DIR's automated pricing form in the Bitstamp Vendor Information System portal. Failures to respond as instructed may result in respondents' offer being disqualified from further evaluation. Next, please. Respondents must also complete the itemized price sheet that is part of the RFO package. Exhibit E contains 4 tabs: instructions, products, related services, and volume discount. Enter prices for each item your company would like to offer to DIR customers within applicable tabs. For certain products, such as COD or those with user interface, VPAD, ACR documents must also be included with respondent's proposal. Elements required for pricing sheets include product category, product description, part number, MSRP list price, discount being offered, and DIR customer price. I will go over briefly attachment 1 to 5. It's a sample attachment. The attachment 1, as mentioned earlier in the sample, is the sample contract. Attachment 2 is the sample standard term and conditions, which are the most updated, most up-to-date version. Attachment 3 is the sample service agreement template. Attachment 4 is the sample master lease agreement template, and attachment 5 is the master operating lease agreement. Now I hand over to Mark to cover the accessibility.
Thank you and good morning. I'm Mark Leavenworth and I'm speaking on behalf of Marie Cohan today. Marie manages the statewide Electronic and Information Resources, or EIR, accessibility program. You're going to hear me use the acronym EIR, which stands for Electronic and Information Resources, during this presentation when referencing digital accessibility. I'm going to be covering exhibits I, J, and K regarding the VPAT, VADSER, and PDAA forms. A little bit of background information. Texas Government Code Chapter 2054, Subchapter M requires state agencies and publicly funded institutions of higher education to comply with EIR accessibility standards. The purpose is for the general public and state employees to have the same access to government information and services regardless of their ability or disability. And the requirements are defined in the Texas Administrative Code and conform to the World Wide Web Consortium, 2.0 AA technical standards. All vendors must provide accessibility documentation. Okay, so the documentation that we're going to discuss today is the PDAA, or the Policy-Driven Adoption for Accessibility Vendor Self-Assessment. This is required for all responses. This is an assessment of the vendor organization's accessibility policies and their accessibility maturity. The VADSR, or the Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request, is for non-product offerings, for example, website development, application development, other development services, and the ACR, or Accessibility Conformance Report, which is a result of a completed VPAT, which stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. And this is for commercial product offerings, for example, software as a service, platform as a service, managed services, and products that contain a user interface. Instructions are included within the forms which must be submitted. They must be complete and accurate, and DAR may request additional supporting information. Agencies and IHEs have the discretion to require a higher WCAG standard. So for example, WCAG 2.1 AA versus 2.0. Agencies and IHEs are responsible for vetting the accessibility of products and services they procure. And so that's the purpose of this documentation. And vendors must provide the most current accessibility conformance report when requested by state agencies and IHEs. Let's move to the next slide, please. Okay, so the PDAA, or the Policy-Driven Adoption for Accessibility Self-Assessment, addresses the responding vendor's accessibility maturity and is not associated with their product or service offering. Accessibility policy maturity provides some insight into the vendor's ability to provide accessible commercial off-the-shelf and non-commercial off-the-shelf offerings. The results from the PDAA are mapped onto the PDAA maturity model. We'll look at that in a moment. Vendors can use the results as a roadmap for implementing their own IT accessibility initiatives. And gaps in vendor internal governance systems and leadership commitment can inhibit the ability to meet these standards for their products and services. One thing to note, the form is an Excel file and should be completed and returned in its original format. Okay, so this is the PDAA maturity matrix. Outcomes from the PDAA self-assessment will place the vendor or organization in one of these three phases based on their responses to the components listed here. And those include launch, integrate, and optimize, with optimize being the most mature. The ACR, or Accessibility Conformance Report, this is essentially a completed VPAT. This is required for commercial products, including as a service products, managed services, and web interfaces. It demonstrates, the ACR demonstrates a completed VPAT and how the product conforms to WCAG 2.0 AA success criteria. VPAT version 2.3 or higher must be used to create the ACR. It's completed based on accessibility testing results and supported by documentation. And documents the conformance with WCAG success criteria, which is supported, partially supports, or not supported. Agencies and IHEs have the discretion to require a higher WCAG standard. Agencies and IHEs are responsible for vetting the accessibility of products and services they procure, and vendors must provide the most current ACR when requested by state agencies and IHEs. Okay, so these are the elements that make up a voluntary product accessibility template, or VPAT. and they're categorized by what is perceivable, what is operable, understandable, and robust. I'm not going to go through all of these, but this is what makes up a VPAT. Okay, so conformance with WCAG success criteria is going to be described by one of these following terms. It either supports the functionality of the product, has at least one method that meets the criterion without known defects or meets the equivalent facilitation. And it supports with exceptions. Some functionality of the product does not meet the criterion. Does not support means the majority of the product functionality does not meet the criterion. Not applicable, it's not relevant to the product, or not evaluated. The product has not been evaluated against the criterion. This can be used only in WCAG 2.0 level AAA. And then the VADSER is the Vendor Accessibility Development Services Information Request. Vendors must complete this form if the response includes one or more of the following services. These are non-commercial off-the-shelf, web development services, web application development services, custom development services as part of an integrated solution, client-based software application development services, other software development services containing one or more user interfaces. So, for example, an end user, an admin, etc. And if it demonstrates how vendors incorporate digital accessibility practices into their development lifecycle and how they will ensure accessibility compliance. All right, section 3 of the VADSER asks the following questions. One, key business processes that include accessible functions, for example, product development, procurement, HR, etc. Detail skills and training resources used to develop and produce accessible products, types of development and testing tools used when developing accessible products, corrective action processes and systems used for documenting, tracking, and resolving accessibility issues and defects, alternate methods that can be provided for accessibility non-compliance, and provide links to or examples of your organization's development products. Digital accessibility training is available for vendors. DIR offers this at no cost to vendors responding to a technology solicitation in Texas. Vendors can request training for employees involved in the solicitation. A registration link will be provided to create your account, and each of these courses takes 45 to 60 minutes to complete. These are what we have available: State of Texas Introduction to Digital Accessibility, Accessibility Policy and Guidelines, Accessibility in IT Procurement, and VPAT, VADSER, and PDAA forms. If you're interested, registration requests can be sent to statewide@dir.texas.gov, and you should copy the procurement lead on those requests. And then lastly, we have some links to digital accessibility resources. The EIR accessibility website is part of the DIR website. EIR accessibility procurement and vendor information, as well as the VPAT template, the VADSER template, and the PDAA template. Contact information for Marie is listed here. Again, that's statewide accessibility at dir.texas.gov. And this concludes my part of the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alexis Jimerson, and I will be going over general information and bid stamp submittal. Next slide. General information, the reference the RFO page number and section number when submitting questions. Webinar participants may submit questions electronically at any time during the webinar. As previously instructed, please use the question tab. Questions answered today are unofficial until posted to the ESBD in the form of an addendum. We will post written answers to all the questions posed today. Please check the ESBD often for updates. This is the responsibility of all respondents to check the ESBD for the most up-to-date information. All questions regarding this RFO must be submitted in writing through the Bitstamp Vendor Information System portal, or VIS, by April 5th, 2024, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Next slide. Disqualification of offers. A few of these things listed here will result in the disqualification of your response. Failure to sign the respondent information form or Exhibit A. Failure to complete financial information, i.e. your DUNS number. Failure to complete a historically underutilized business subcontracting plan or HUB subcontracting plan, HSP. Failure to complete and submit Exhibit E, itemized pricing sheet. Failure to submit on or before the due date and time. Contact with DIR employees regarding this RFO other than the designated contacts. Failure to submit on or before due date and time. We cannot stress the importance of getting your response in on time and not waiting until the day your response is due to submit your response. Please make sure that when you contact any of the DIR employees listed today, that you please make sure you copy Tuvan, as she is the procurement lead for this solicitation, and she is your one point of contact for this solicitation. Delivery of offers. Any vendor responding to this RFO must submit their response through Bitstamp VIS. Next slide. Respondents and all respondent representatives shall not attempt to discuss the contents of this RFO with any employees or representatives of DIR other than designated contacts. Failure to observe this restriction may result in disqualification of any related response. Please, please, please pay attention to this caution. Next slide. Contacts for inquiries for this RFO are listed as Tuvan. Contacts for related topics, vendor information systems for VIS portal Bitstamp is Stephanie Harrison. Subcontracting plan is Teresa Williamson, or the DIR Hub mailbox. Next slide. Okay. Any respondent responding to this RFO must submit their response through the Bitstamp Vendor Information System, or VIS. Before users can access this system, they must have been provided login credentials to access a new or existing account. Vendors will access the Bitstamp VIS portal using the link pictured here on the slide and enter in their access credentials. If you do not yet have login credentials, you will have to request one by clicking on "Are you a vendor?" and "Need to request an account." That button is located on the login page, which we will show you a picture of later on in the slideshow. You may also view a video on how to set up your Bitstamp account at this link listed below, https://dir.texas.gov/outreach and training. Please note if you have previously created a Bitstamp account, you can use the same account. If you have not previously created a Bitstamp account or your account information has changed, i.e. your email or business name, you will need to create a new account. Since this is not an automatic approval process, please allow us 2 business days for your account to be approved. This means you cannot wait till the day responses are due to try and set up your Bidstamp account. You will need to plan and make sure that you have received your login credentials prior to the due date for the RFO. If you have not received your Bidstamp login credentials, please contact the point of contact listed in the RFO. The link on this slide will take you to a video on how to set up your Bidstamp account, as I previously stated. So we will not go through that presentation at this time. We will just go over what you need to submit in order to have a responsive proposal. Next slide. Persons with disability who seek accommodation under the Americans with Disability Act or ADA in responding to the solicitation may contact DIR at any time using the point of contact in section 3.1 of the solicitation. Please allow at least 5 business days for response. Again, a reminder that if you need this accommodation, you will need to contact us 5 business days before your response is needed. And I strongly encourage you guys to do that well in advance. Next slide. This on the screen is a picture of what you will see when you go to www.dirtexas.gov. Most of the information you will need is under the Selling Through DIR link located on the right of the page. Once you click on that link, you will be taken to that page. Next slide. Once you get here, you will be taken to the Schedule a Solicitation Opportunities page. You're going to scroll down on the web page for further information. Next slide. The vendor Bidstamp guide is posted on DIR's website on the Schedule of Solicitation Opportunities page. The direct link is listed here on the slide. You will click the Bidstamp online solicitation portal button. And it will take you to this screen. After a vendor account is enabled, a vendor will submit and manage RFO responses from the Bidstamp VIS portal. This portal allows up to 5 users. You must use the login credentials that you received after you set up your Bidstamp account in order to log into this portal. Next slide. After your vendor account is enabled, you will be able to manage and submit RFO responses from the Bidstamp VIS portal. You will select Open Solicitations, the button pictured on the screen, in order to submit your response. Next slide. Creating a new response. To create a new response, you must log into the portal and select the Open Solicitations tile. You will click on the RFO number of the solicitation you want to respond to. In this case, for this solicitation, it will be DIR-CPO-TMP-588. You will be navigated to the RFO number detail page. This page will show you all of the RFOs that are open to receive responses. And again, for this RFO, you will navigate to DIR-CPO-TMP-588. Next slide. Once you have selected the RFO number you're seeking to respond to, this is the page that will display important deadlines for the solicitation and list any questions that you may have submitted. Please pay attention to the date and time that responses are due. All times are Central Standard Time. Please allow yourself enough time for technical issues. Once the date and time has passed, Bitstamp will no longer allow you to submit your response, even if you are in the middle of submitting the response. Please plan accordingly. Next slide. Here are descriptions of the RFO detail buttons. In order to respond to the solicitation, you will create a new response or view a response that is in progress. If a response has already been created or started, this button will read as view response and allow you to resume your progress on an existing RFO response. The ask a question button. Submit a question. This button will allow you to submit a question that will be reviewed by a DIR source. In this case, it will be the procurement lead assigned. Questions can be submitted up until the question submission deadline date indicated in the RFO document and on the VIS detail page. The subscribe to a solicitation button. Subscribe to a solicitation if you would like to receive addendum notifications. To subscribe to the solicitation, you must select subscribe to solicitation button and have enabled your contact to receive notifications. If you do not enable your contact to receive notifications, you will not receive the addendum notifications through the VIS system. The view solicitation documents button. This button will navigate you to the ESBD posting for the solicitation, where you can view the solicitation's documents. The solicitation documents will not be contained in the VIS portal. All solicitation exhibits and documentation must be downloaded from the ESBD. As a reminder, the ESBD is the official location for all response materials for the RFO. Please check the ESBD for addendums on a regular basis at the RFO posting throughout the solicitation process. Next slide. The RFO response page buttons. Here we are detailing out the buttons that are pointed out. One of them is the delete button. The delete button will delete all information that has been uploaded and the response record before the response has been submitted. Please note, once the response is submitted, the vendor must use the withdraw button that will appear upon solicitation submission. That means if you have already submitted your response and you wish to make a change, you have to hit withdraw and you will have to resubmit the documents. The submit button submits the response record and all associated information. Please reference the vendor guide section 5.7. Ask a question. This button lets you ask a question to be submitted to the procurement lead. The deadline is indicated in the RFO and on the RFO detail page. Creating a pricing form. You must submit pricing information for your response via the automated pricing form, and you must fill out the Excel pricing form and submit that with your response. You must do both. The automated pricing form and the Excel pricing form, both must be submitted. New RFO response documents. Upload required files indicated in the RFO posted on the ESBD. The vendor references. Submit new reference email address and Opt to send vendor reference. You may send your reference request through the system. However, there is no way for us to track that, so we do suggest that you use email to request your vendor references. Some things to note. The bid stamp pricing submission is the portion that is evaluated and scored. It has limited information and is a summary of what you propose by brand only. The spreadsheet is the full proposal and is utilized in determining if the proposed products and services are within scope and will be utilized during negotiations if the response advances that far. Failure to submit pricing in bid stamp will cause the response to receive a 0 for pricing, which is 40% of the total evaluation score. Failure to submit pricing on the spreadsheet will not allow the review to determine if the products and services are within scope and therefore may result in disqualification or a cease to negotiate for an incomplete response. Second note, it is highly recommended that you review the RFO and the naming convention and that you rename the required response documents exactly the same as what they are named in the RFO section 3.8.3.3 so that you do not miss loading a required document. And it is also to prevent system problems with file names. Our file names have, they have a character limit. And so it is strongly recommended that you follow the naming convention to prevent problems loading your response. It is also strongly recommended that you load the documents in the format that they are provided as exhibits in the RFO. I.e., if we gave you a Word document, please give us back a Word document. If we gave you an Excel, please submit it in Excel format. Many times, converting a document to a PDF will truncate the document, leaving off important information. That information will be needed for the response document to be considered complete. In addition, if you are using electronic signature function, please be sure that there is a valid electronic signature and not just a type name in the signature field. If you are not able to include a valid verified electronic signature on pages where signature is required, please print that page, ink sign, and upload a copy to the bid stamp portal. Next slide. Response files. The respondent must provide the items listed below. That is Exhibit A and must be signed. Exhibit A, cancel contracts, Appendix 1, if applicable. Exhibit A1, exceptions. Exhibit B, respondent history and experience. Exhibit C, contract marketing and consumer support plan. Exhibit D, historically underutilized subcontracting plan. Exhibit E, your itemized price sheet. Exhibit F, your vendor references. Exhibit G, respondent release of liability for reference. Exhibit F will be submitted via the email address provided in the exhibit from your reference directly to DIR. So that does not have to be loaded into VIS because that comes direct, those references come directly to us from your reference. Please note, there are no exceptions to the signature on Exhibit A. In addition to required vendor certifications that must be acknowledged, the signature on Exhibit A is what allows your company to attest the person signing the response has the authority to bind your agency to a contract with DIR should your response be successful upon the completion of negotiations. For Exhibit D, the hub subcontracting plan is required from all vendors, even those vendors that are certified hubs. This must be signed and uploaded into VIS Bid Stamp. The itemized pricing sheet. Just a reminder that please use the template provided. Do not submit your own pricing list. Follow the instructions on tab 1 and upload in the Excel spreadsheet provided. Please do not convert this to a PDF as it delays the negotiation process. Again, for vendor references, you can send the requests for the references directly from your email, but they must be returned to DIR from the customer by the date and time stated in the reference form. You can also send these out through bid stamp to your customers. If you use these options, you will not be able to see if the customer sent the reference form back to DIR. Just a reminder. Next slide. Your response should also contain your Exhibit H, Exhibit I, Exhibit J, and Exhibit K. Any software license agreements and/or service agreements, if applicable. Please submit those with your response. Any exceptions requested, Exhibit A or affirmative statement that the response takes no exceptions, and any signed addenda to the RFO. Please be reminded that Exhibit I, the PDAA, is required for all vendors. This concludes the general information and VIS bid stamp portion of the webinar. Next slide.
We're going to break for about 10 minutes. We'll be back at 11. Let's do 11:10. We'll be back to go over the questions. All right, we're going to go ahead and start going over the questions that were submitted. The first question is, what about LMS for government employees?
I can take that one. The LMS for staff are under the technology-based training, including the instructor-led training for the technology RFO 560. So that product will be under that 560, DIR CPO TMP 560.
Okay, next question. Can you clarify the submission of the pricing, both the sheet and directly in Bidstamp?
Alexis covered during the Bidstamp portion. Do you still need clarification on that?
I can address that. Basically, the Bidstamp pricing is what you're evaluated on. So if you don't submit your Bidstamp pricing, you're going to miss out on 40% of your total points because you'll receive a score of 0. The spreadsheet is the detailed pricing list that shows everything that you're proposing, so we can determine if what you're proposing is in or out of scope, and then that is used during negotiation. So failure to submit it on the spreadsheet may disqualify you because we can't determine if your offerings are in or out of scope. And if it's not included, we don't have anything to negotiate with. So you may receive a cease to negotiate, even if you pass the score on the evaluation side, because we don't have a lot of bandwidth to go back and get additional information that wasn't submitted as a part of the required submission to the response.
Okay, next question. Do any of these exhibits / attachments need to be updated or resubmitted after the initial award?
Yes, if there are changes that require updates, most commonly will be the HSP, the terms and condition, may be updated as DIR as needed.
Okay, next question. Will we be able to submit our hub subcontracting plan to the hub office for review before submission, like we were able to do with RFO 583? And the answer is yes. Please submit it 10 days before the due date so we have time to review. And the next question is there an open solicitation to offer products / services on as needed basis? Does it mean agencies can use this directly for purchases less than regulatory bid requirements? If yes, what is the limit?
So state agencies have statutory limits, thresholds that they have to abide by in order to make the purchases directly off of co-op contracts. This is a cooperative contract solicitation. So it's a master contract with a $0 award through DIR. The contracts are utilized by our customers whenever they determine a need. The state agencies have different threshold requirements. Those are available on the DIR website, but there are threshold requirements for 50,000 to $1 million. They have to go out and solicit among or get bids from multiple vendors. They can still use DIR cooperative contracts. 1 million, I believe, to 5 million is the next threshold. They can also still utilize DIR cooperative contracts. Once it's over 10 million, they have to go out to open bid and cannot buy directly off of DIR cooperative contracts. On this type of solicitation, that is usually not an issue because the majority of the products and services that are offered under education IT will fall below that $10 million threshold.
Okay, next question. Per the presentation section 4 and 5, training support solutions for software / hardware training is considered a service. So creating and delivering an e-learning course or virtual learning content would be considered a service versus a product. Am I understanding this correctly?
It depends on your offering. So if you're offering it as a COTS, commercial off-the-shelf software, that's a product. If you're offering it as a service, that would fall under the service category. So it depends on how you're proposing that particular offering. Anything that is software is going to be a product.
Okay, next questions. Respondent history and experience and references. I have a new business and previously been an employee with 0 government contracts and the only one client thus far. All products and services were for internal use. Would previous employers and/or supervisors be acceptable? How can I best describe my history and experiences, Exhibit B, and references, Exhibit F?
So in your history and experience, you need to present your company in a fashion. Basically, that's kind of like your pitch to DIR and what your company does. So you need to explain it in a way that somebody who has no information about your company can get a firm grasp of what your company provides and is intending to offer under a cooperative contract should you be awarded one. So provide that information to the best of your ability. There are several questions in there where we ask for like the years of experience and stuff, but some of those aren't necessarily scored, but we do like to know some of the newer vendors versus some of the tenured vendors, because you may need a little bit more assistance if you get awarded a DIR contract, and that just kind of helps staff to know the experience level of that vendor. It doesn't necessarily disqualify you unless you don't answer the questions or give you a lower score. You have to answer the questions fully and completely and to the best of your ability with factual information.
Okay, next question. Are the class item codes in this RFO used or referenced in any of the bidding information? For example, pricing Exhibit E. Does it need to be on the documentation such as invoicing, or does it need to be in the response documents?
The NIGP codes are used to advertise the solicitation to show what we are looking for under this particular RFO. All the products and services that are proposed need to be within the scope of those NIGP codes. If you're trying to propose products and services that are not included in those NIGP codes that may be determined to be out of scope of the RFO, which is a disqualifier for the moving forward with a contract award. So please review the RFO. Make sure that you're proposing products and services that are within scope, which are the NIGP identified as the NIGP codes. You don't need to call those out to us during your submission process. If you move forward to the evaluation process, we'll discuss with you the NIGP codes that you're being considered for an award. And our customers utilize the NIGP codes to find products and services that they're wanting to purchase. And they may have additional requirements for utilizing those NIGP codes whenever they're submitting purchase orders and asking for requests for quotes.
Okay, next question. Will we be able to get a recording of this meeting?
Hi, a link to the recording of this meeting, along with the slides, attendee list, and written answers to the questions, will be posted to the ESPD under solicitation number DIR CPO TMP 588.
Okay, next question. If you do not include all product categories listed in 2.1.1, are you automatically disqualified?
No, that information is included in the RFO as well.
Okay, the next question, will DIR consider moving the date for questions Current date 4/5, a minimum of a week due to the review of the presentation, and registration for bid stamp to take 2 days.
Not planning at this time.
Okay, the next question. For the complimentary review of the hub subcontracting plan, will we submit that via bid stamp by adding a document? In order for DIR to see it, would we have to submit the response early?
If you are requesting a complimentary review of your hub subcontracting plan, you can submit that via email to the hub team via the contacts we provided before. It does not have to be submitted into BidStamp to get a complimentary review. Please make sure you submit that 10 business days before the response is due, so that we give the hub team enough time to get your response.
I want to add to that, all documents that are submitted through BidStamp we are not able to view those until the due date and time has passed, and those have gone through the administrative review. So if you submit it through BidStamp, we're not going to get it in time to receive it. That would just be a part of your response, because that is the response submission portal. That is what BidStamp is used for. It's the same thing as back in the day whenever you had to take your binder up to the bid room and have it file stamped with the date and time of when it was received. It had to be received by the file room by a specific time and date in order for it to be considered a response to the solicitation. BidStamp is the same thing, it's just electronic. So anything submitted in BidStamp will not be viewed. We can't go in and see what you've posted. We can't verify that your documents have been received. All of that is closed until the solicitation due date and time have passed. And then the solicitation is released for viewing by the applicable DIR staff. So the instructions for how to submit your hub subcontracting plan for review were included in the presentation. That email is dir.hub@dir.texas.gov. And then Brianna just answered earlier that you needed to have that submitted 10 days before the submission closes to give them time to review that. That is a complimentary review. It's not required, but if you want that review, you need to plan for it and get it done in advance.
Perfect, thank you. The next question is also, will this contract be able to be utilized for E-rate RFPs that require a valid co-op contract with someone like DIR?
So currently this RFO is not a part of the E-rate. Those are the data storage and the networking type equipment, which is on a different RFO that is already past the submission date. That was our data storage, networking, and the equipment for that.
Okay, next question. In BidStamp, do we enter every line item we are offering for this RFO? This would be the same information provided in Exhibit E, correct? For RFO 583, we were only required to enter each category average.
The instructions for how to enter the information into BidStamp is listed in the RFO instructions. If that's not clear, we'll provide additional instructions in the Q&A document, but there's two specific sets of data that we're looking for, which I covered a little bit earlier. The BidStamp submission is what you're going to be scored on. So that is your brand, whether it's manufacturer or reseller, the MSRP, the discount off the MSRP. Your spreadsheet is the full, everything that you're proposing, all the details with descriptions and your pricing and your categories and the brands. It's a more robust list of what it is that you're proposing.
Okay, next question. If your company is a hub, will that count as the 21.1% towards hubs, or should we also include other hubs in our submission? And I'm going to go ahead and answer the question. Hubs and non-hubs are required to submit the hub subcontracting form. You cannot put your company as a subcontractor on the HSP. So if you're planning to subcontract, please fill out the correct method. And we also do that complimentary review for you. And the next question, will this language be removed? And can you please clarify what this means? I'm not sure if that goes to a different question.
It's the question below it. Products currently on DIR contract may be considered within scope of this solicitation only if these products are a component of a more comprehensive solution. This RFO is not a solicitation for software or hardware products currently offered on DIR contract. The language will not be removed. And what we're basically stating is that this is not a solicitation for software or hardware products that are currently offered on an existing DIR contract.
Okay, next question. Regarding VPAT submission, as the number of VPATs is large, is there an email address we can submit the VPAT in a zip format?
We'll need to check with IT and get a response back to you in the Q&A document.
Okay, next question. Also in 2.1.1, there is mention of not being able to include software or hardware products currently offered on the DIR contract. May we include products that have expiring contracts?
We can provide additional clarification in the Q&A document. The intent of that is to not have overlapping scopes with other RFOs that already have contracts awarded. So there is a software RFO out there that is just software. There are other RFOs out there that provide like the in-person training through the LMS systems. That's a completely different RFO when the training is intended for employees and not at the educational level for the students. There are other RFOs that may have like storage components or printer components. We're talking about those where we have a complete overlap of scope. This isn't the RFO to duplicate what's within scope on another RFO. You may propose what you have, and then those will be taken up for consideration during the negotiation award, but they may not fall within the scope of this RFO because they're more appropriate in the scope of another RFO.
Okay, I think all questions have been answered. We will continue with the slides.
Continuation of the slides, rejection of responses. Section 3.9 of the RFO states DIR has the sole discretionary authority and reserves the right to reject any and all responses received as a result of this RFO. Responses that do not comply with the mandatory submission requirements may be rejected. In addition, DIR reserves the right to accept or reject in whole or in part any responses submitted and to waive minor technicalities when in the best interest of the state. Next slide. As a reminder, questions answered today are unofficial until posted on the Electronic State Business Daily or ESBD in the form of an addendum. Any changes or additional information regarding this RFO will be posted as an addendum to requisition number DIR CPO TMP 588 on the ESBD link pictured here on the screen. It is the responsibility of the vendors to monitor the ESBD website for addenda. Pictured on the screen now is the RFO schedule. This is also listed in section 3.3 of the RFO under anticipated schedule of events. Please mark your calendars with the due dates. These due dates are also posted in the portal. Once you register and get your bid stamp credentials, you will be able to see the deadlines for response submission and for question submittal and reference submittal. Next slide. This signifies the end of the conference. All questions and inquiries must be directed to Van Hun. Her email address is listed on the screen. Thank you for your attendance. We look forward to hearing from you guys.